जगद्गुरुं श्रीभगवानुवाच ऊर्ध्वमूलं अधःशाखम् अश्वत्थं प्राहुरव्ययम् छन्दांसि यस्य पर्णानि यस्तं वेद स वेदवेत् अधश्चोर्ध्वं प्रसृतस्तस्य शाखा पुनः प्रविरदा विषया प्रबाला अधश्च मूलानि अनुसन्ततानि कर्मानुबन्धीनि मनुष्यलोके न रूपमस्त्येह ततोपलभ्यते नान्तो न चादिर्न च सम्प्रतिष्ठा आश्वत्थमेनं सुविरूढमूलम् असङ्गशस्त्रेण धृतेन चित्वा तथा पदं तत्परिमार्गितव्यं यस्मिन् गता न निवर्तन्ति भूयः तम् एव चाद्यं पुरुषं प्रपद्ये यत्ता प्रवृत्ति प्रशता पुराणी निर्माणमोहाजितसङ्गदोषा अध्यात्मनित्या विनिवृत्तकामा द्वन्द्वैर्विमुक्ता सुखदुःखसंज्ञैः गच्छन्तमूढा पदमव्ययं तत् न तद्भासयते सूर्यो न शशाङ्को न पावकः यद्गत्वा न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम परमं मम ममैवांसो जीवलोके जीवभूता सनातना मनशस्तानि इन्द्रियाणि प्रकृतिष्ठानि कर्षति शरीरं यादवाप्नोति यच्चाप्युत्क्रामतीश्वर गृहीत्वैतानि संयाति वायुर्गन्धानि वात्सयत् श्रोत्रं चक्षुस्प्रसनं च रसनं घ्राणमेव च अधिष्ठाय मनश्चायं विषयन् उपसेवते उत्क्रामन्तं स्थितं वापि पुञ्जानां वा गुणान्विदं विमूढानानुपश्यन्ति पश्यन्ति ज्ञानचक्षुषा यतन्तो योगिनश्चैनं पश्यन्त्यत्मान्यवस्थितं यतन्तोऽप्याकृतात्मानो नैनं पश्यन्त चेतसः यद्आदित्यगतं तेजो जगद्भासयतेऽखिलं यच्चन्द्रमसि यच्चाग्नौ तत्तेजो वेदि मामकम् गामविश्य च भूतानि धारयाम्यहमोजसा उष्णामि चौषधी सर्व सोमो भूत्वा रसात्मका अहं वैश्वानरो भूत्वा प्राणिनां देहमाश्रिता प्राणपानसमयुक्ता पचाम्यन्नं चतुर्विधं सर्वस्य चाहं हृदि सन्निविष्टो मत्तास्मृतिर्ज्ञानमपोहनं च वेदैश्च सर्वे अहमेव वेद्यो वेदान्तकृद्वेदविदेव चाहं द्वौ इमौ पुरुषौ लोके चरश्च चर एव च चर सर्वाणि भूतानि कूटस्थो चर उच्यते उत्तमा पुरुषस्त्वन्यः परमात्मेत्युदारता यो लोकत्रयमाविश्य विवर्त्यव्याय ईश्वर यस्माच्चरम् अतीतोऽहम् अक्षरादपि चोत्तमा अतोऽस्मि लोके वेदे च प्रथिता पुरुषोत्तमा यो मामेवम् सम्मूढो जानाति पुरुषोत्तमम् स सर्वविद् भजति मां सर्वभावेन भारत इति गुह्यतमं शास्त्रम् इदं मुक्तं मया नघ एतद्बुद्ध्वा बुद्धिमान् च कृतकृत्यश्च भारत ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीता सुपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे पुरुषोत्तमयोगो नाम पञ्चदशोऽध्याय हरि ओम तत्सत् हरि ओम तत्सत् हरि ओम तत्सत् श्रीकृष्णार्पणमस्तु शुभं भूयात् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्. Hari Om to all of you. Today we will be finishing the balance few verses of chapter 16. Last week we stopped at, chapter 17. We stopped at verse number 23. So what we discussed under verse number 23, after having spoken about the 4 types of spiritual practices. You remember what are the 4 types? What are the 4 types of spiritual practices as advised in chapter 17? One is food, that is ahara. Next is yajna. Third is danam. And fourth is tapas. So ahara, yajna, dana, tapa. Food, yajna is prayers or rituals, dana is charity, and tapa is austerity. So how Krishna explained all these 4 practices, and he explained that each of these practices can be done in 3 ways: sattvic way, rajasic way, or tamasic way. And obviously, if we want spiritual enlightenment or spiritual improvement, we have to follow the sattvic way and avoid the rajasic and tamasic way. Now, for a person who practices these 4 practices in the sattvic way, but he or she may not have an idea of how to perform these things according to the scriptures. So here Krishna is speaking about someone who is ignorant of the scriptures, but he has faith in God and he practices ahara, yajna, dana, tapa in the sattvic way. But in some of his practices, he may be doing something wrong. He may be violating something in the scriptures by not offering the right materials, by not chanting the mantras in the proper way, or so forth. So, is there a remedy? Krishna says yes. In verse number 23, he explained to us that if we do anything unintentionally wrong, but we do it with faith, then we should chant the mantra Om Tat Sat. Why is the mantra Om Tat Sat so powerful? Because in verse 23 we discussed last week, Om Tat Sat are the 3 names of Brahman. So Brahman here we are talking about is the supreme divinity who is beyond form, who is unmanifest. So we can either address him as Om or as Tat or as Sat. Any one or all the 3 names are fine. Now, when should we utter Om Tat Sat? He will explain in the coming verses. But what is important for us to understand is, from Brahman came this sound Om Tat Sat. And from this sound, the vibration of the sound Om Tat Sat, the next thing that came was the Vedas, the scriptures. So you can see actually it's very scientific. Why is sound the first thing to come? Why is it so important? He mentions here the first thing that came was the sound Om Tat Sat. Why is sound so important? Sound is important or words are important? Which is more important? without sound, can you make words? So sound has got to come first. Only with sound coming first, then you can form a word. So what is this word? The words are the words given in the scriptures. So the Vedas. So after this Om Tat Sat sound came, and what does Om Tat Sat represent? Om represents the three states of consciousness. That is waking state, dream state, and deep sleep state. So that is represented by Om. Tat means that, which means when we use the word that, means it is not something which is presently in our sense perception. So we say that day, that person, that time. So that's another name for Brahman. Because you cannot, the senses, the five senses cannot describe, is beyond the description of the senses. So is that. And Sat means existence, reality. And what was the definition last week? I told you about Sat. What is the definition of reality? How do you define when you say this is real? Huh? Sorry? Permanent, non-changing, right? That is not subject to change. So that is the description of Brahman, Om Tat Sat. So from the sound came the word. According to him, he says, then came the Vedas, the scriptures. And for us to understand the Vedas, because they are in Sanskrit and they are quite what we say very subtle, the next thing the Lord also gave us is the Brahmanas. Who are the Brahmanas? Brahmanas are not determined by the family they are born or where they are born. Brahmanas are basically those people who follow the way of the Vedas, who follow a life of Dharma. So they study the Vedas, they have the knowledge, and they also follow the path of knowledge, the Vedas and the Dharma. So the Brahmanas also help us to understand what is the teachings of the Vedas. And what is the teaching of the Vedas? The Lord says yajna, sacrifices. How we should live a life of sacrifice. Meaning we have been put on this earth not just to take and take and take, but whatever we receive, we have to learn how to share. So these things came. First the Lord sent the sound Om. From Om came the Vedas. Then came the Brahmanas. Then came the what we call the Yajnas. So that's what he said to us in verse number 23. Okay. So all these were born, and then what is the significance of this Om Tat Sat? Now he is going to explain to us in the next verses. Okay. And when did this what we call these Vedas, the Brahmanas, the sound Om Tat Sat, when did it come? It is mentioned in verse 23. Vihita Puraha. Puraha means they were given at the beginning of creation. So Krishna is saying, I'm not just telling you Om Tat Sat, suddenly he has just created this thing called Om Tat Sat. The same thing has been given at the beginning of creation. So the Vedas came at the beginning of creation, Om Tat Sat came at the beginning of creation, Brahmanas, everything came at the beginning of creation. So this is the glory of the Vedas and the Om Tat Sat. So now in verse 24, he starts to explain how we should invoke this Om Tat Sat. So he says in verse 24, Tasmat, meaning therefore, the three acts that he described in verse 17, Yakya, Dana, Tapa. So he mentions this in verse 24. You can see the second line, Yakya, Dana, Tapa, Kriyaha. Kriyaha means acts of Yakya, Dana, Tapa. Acts of prayers or rituals, charity and austerities. The Lord says one should observe these three acts. And where are these three Yakya, Dana, Tapa? How to perform these actions? In what way to perform? The Lord says Vidana Uktaha. Uktaha means they have been mentioned in the Vedas. They have been mentioned in the scriptures. So again, the Gita is merely fortifying, it's not creating any new knowledge. Krishna in the Gita is merely fortifying and supporting everything that is already given in the Vedas. The Gita does not conflict with the Vedas. As Krishna said in chapter 4, I gave the Vedas at the beginning of time, and then I've come again because slowly people have strayed away from the spiritual knowledge. So he came to re-establish this knowledge of the Vedas. How did he establish the knowledge of the Vedas? He simplified the Vedas and condensed it and gave us in the form of Bhagavad Gita. So at least if we cannot study the Vedas, at least the Gita is more easier for us to study. It's a condensation of the Vedas. So the Lord said, these three duties have been already prescribed in the Vedas. Now the question we must ask is, what is the purpose for us to perform these three duties? They have been prescribed in the scriptures. But why should we perform them? What is the purpose? What is the end result? So, here he says here, he explains to us, who are the people first who follow the injunctions of the Vedas? Who will be interested to follow what is mentioned to us in the scriptures? And here the Lord mentions Brahmavadina. Brahmavadina means those who believe in the words of the scriptures. They believe that this is the right teachings that will take me in the right direction, that will give me moksha, that will give me enlightenment. So first of all, these instructions were followed by the people who have faith and follow the teachings of the Vedas. Thus, what do they do? He says, excuse me, understanding how important the teachings are in the Vedas and the significance of the Om Tat Sat mantra, the Lord said, Pravartante, before they start any actions, before they commence any action, whether it is worldly action, whether it is spiritual action, before you commence any action, Satatam, they never forget to seek the blessings from the Lord. So what do? Om iti udharitya. They chant the word Om. So now we know, when was the word Om be chanted? Before you commence any actions. Right? Before you start your work, chant what? So you see, actually the scriptures have made it very easy for us. They are not telling us go and chant elaborate, 1 hour mantras, 30-minute mantras and all that. What Krishna is saying here, just chant the word Om, that's all. Before you start anything, right? So before you start your work, Om. Before you start cooking, you chant Om, one simple word. Whatever work you're doing, before you give any charity, you chant Om. So what is the purpose we will discuss later. So he says, people understood the glory of this Om Tat Sat. They understood the efficacy of this Om Tat Sat. Now one more thing is, although he is saying chant Om, you can also chant Tat, you can also chant Sat, because all three names are the names of that Supreme Being. He is just giving us an example. You can chant Om, or Tat, or Sat, or you can chant Om Tat Sat, you can chant all. That's up to you. Okay? But whatever it is, somebody asked me last week, can I not chant Om Namah Shivaya? Must I chant Om Tat Sat? Can I not chant Hare Krishna? So what is the meaning from this verse? What is he trying to tell you? Is it that you must chant Om? You cannot chant anything else? What is the significance he's trying to tell us here?
Seek the blessing of God.
Sorry?
Seek the blessing
Of God, exactly. The point here is that remember God before you start anything. Why and all that we will come to discuss. But main point we must take back from here is that it doesn't matter what you chant. Whichever deity, if you are your Ishta Devata is Shiva, Om Namah Shivaya, fine, it's no problem. Right here is just giving us an example because Om Tat Sat is the names of Brahman, the supreme being. But whatever word you chant of the Lord is an auspicious word. So the idea is to create that connection with the Lord. So at least minimum for those of us who eat 3 times a day, you will remember God 3 times a day. Before you eat your food also you can chant Om, right? And those who are in the habit of eating 5 or 6 meals a day, you will remember God more also, right? So the idea is here to remember God before you commence every action. Now what we call the result if you chant Om or you remember God and perform the action? What is the result? At least your mind is tuned with God. Whatever it is, at least you remember God also. And you don't act with all other negative. Supposing there's, otherwise if we don't chant the name of God, we don't take the name of God, then there is other impurities in us. We may be driven by these impurities, ego, anger, greed, lust, jealousy, etc. But the more and more we chant the name of God, the more and more we connect with it. So there is also another beautiful verse earlier given to us in chapter 9. If you go back to chapter 9 verse 27, page number 175. Chapter 9 verse 27, page 175. There Krishna said, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer as oblation to the sacred fire, yajna, whatever you bestow as a gift, dhanam, whatever you do by way of penance, tapaha, so all the same exercises he told us. What do you do? Offer it all to me. Meaning, not physically offer, but mentally invoke the grace of the Lord and then perform your actions. So one of the points is given us here is that to chant the name of the Lord before we commence any actions. Okay? Now he goes on in verse 25 to speak to us about the glory of the Tat mantra. Now he comes to Tat. So when is Tat supposed to be chanted? Also, Tat mantra in verse number 25, he says, uttering Tat before the commencement of Yajna, Tapaha, Dhanam, before you commence these activities, Yajna, Dhanam, Tapa, before you perform all these activities, but what is most important? Now, here again our attitude is very important. So one is, yes, we are invoking the name of God before we start the action. But now also it's very important, what is your attitude when you are doing all this Yajna, Dhanam, Tapa? So what should be our right attitude? The attitude is, he mentions in verse 25, Anabhi Sandaya. The word Anabhi Sandaya means without desiring. There should be no desire in your heart or mind for what? Halam, the result of your action. So now there's another condition here. We think just by simply doing dhanam, if I give charity with ego, and if I chant Om Tat Sat, it is not going to help me. So what should be the second criteria? The first criteria is before you start the action, you chant Om Tat Sat. Second criteria given in verse 25 is that when you are performing these actions, before you perform, you chant Om Tat Sat, but there must not be a selfish desire in your mind. So you must not have any expectation. I'm doing this prayer for certain purposes. I'm giving this charity for certain purposes. Or I'm keeping this austerity to gain something back. So that is the second condition. Otherwise, the Om Tat Sat mantra is of no use. Okay? So, Anabhi Sandaya, without desiring halal. So, if I should not have a desire for the result of my action, then why should I perform this action? What should be my attitude? If I should not have the desire for the results from this action, what should be my attitude? What should be my attitude? That means all the prayers you do,
Dedicated to God.
dedicate to God exactly. As a service to the Lord, I am serving your creation. So that should be the attitude. It is my duty to give back, to serve you, O Lord. That should be the attitude. And if we consider it as a duty and a service to Lord, there should not be no expectation of return. So, even though you don't have any expectations, even though you're doing all the actions as a surrender to the Lord, you will get something back. You know what you get back in return? Even though you don't expect it, you will get something back in return. And what is that? Huh?
Grace.
Sorry?
His grace.
His grace, yes, of course. But what will be the, okay, you get His grace, but how will it benefit you? You get
Purity of
one.
mind.
Huh?
Purity of mind.
Purity of mind, exactly. It cleanses our mind of all the impurities. The more and more we act without expectation as an instrument in the hands of the Lord to serve His creation, although you don't expect it, the end result is you get purity of mind. So that is the main thing that happens. And what happens when your mind gets more pure? So we go back to chapter 4. Chapter 4, I think it's verse number 30. Verse number 33. That's verse number 33, page 94. Chapter 4, verse 33, page 94. So, there also Krishna had explained what is the reason why we do all these prayers, rituals, why we do dhanam, why we do seva. What is the result? Does performing all these actions give you moksha? By doing charity, by doing seva, by doing prayers, rituals, even though you don't have any expectation, does it give you moksha?
Closer. You can get closer.
Huh?
No needs.
So how many of you believe it will give you moksha? Only one. The rest of you all don't believe. Believe it won't give you moksha. So here,
Eventually.
huh?
Eventually.
So here he explained. Okay, eventually is correct, but how do you get moksha? He explained in verse 33. He says, take the last two lines of the Sanskrit text. Sarva karma akhilam partha jnani parisamapyate. He is telling Arjuna, Sarva karma, all the actions that you do, prayers, rituals, dhanam, charity, seva, whatever you do, Sarva karma, akhilam, without exception, parisamapyate, culminate in what? Jnana, knowledge. So the purpose of doing prayers, rituals, seva, all this is to purify the mind, as we discussed just now. And with the purified mind arises a thirst for knowledge. So we have to understand all this. That all these actions, activities we are doing will purify our mind if done with the right attitude. And in the purified mind there will arise a thirst for knowledge. And then you go seeking for the next verse, verse 34, the very famous verse, you go seeking for a guru to get that knowledge. With that knowledge, then you attain moksha. So that is the process we must understand. So that's why, coming back to this, Krishna is saying, all these are performed by those who perform this yakya dana tapa without expecting the fruits of their results. They have no expectations. Okay? And thus, what are they seeking? What they are seeking is moksha kanshivi. So the ultimate goal is moksha, the infinite goal. In fact, we are always thinking there's only one infinite goal, right? There's only one thing that is infinite in this world. Do you agree? Everything is finite. There's only one thing that is infinite. That is? Huh? Who? Brahman, right? But today what wise men said what? There are two infinite things in this world. What are the two infinite things? One is God and one is human stupidity. Isn't it? Because there is no end to that ignorance of human beings. We live here, we die here, we come back here, we go on and on and on and on. So there is no end to human, I would say, human ignorance actually. So moksha kanshipi means those people who have come to realize that the world cannot offer me infinite happiness. So they are seeking something beyond that. So that's why they are not interested in all these what we call material things. Through my prayers, through my rituals, whatever I do, what's the point of expecting all this which is finite, which one day I'll be again dissatisfied. So their goal is the infinite, moksha kanshipi. Okay? Now we come to verse 26, where now Krishna explains about glory of Sat also, which is also another name for Brahman also. So what does Sat indicate? Sat, as we said, means that is what is the truth, that is does not change. But Sat also can mean a lot of other things, as mentioned in verse 26. So here Krishna says, Sat iti etat, the word Sat, prayujate is used with regards to what? Number one, Sadbhave. Sadbhave means the state of existence, that which is eternal, that which is beyond time and space. And that's why Adi Shankaracharya coined that very famous saying, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. The only thing that is Satyam, that is real, is Brahman. Whereas everything in this creation is Mithya, is unreal, is false. Meaning that, not that it does not exist, but it is undergoing change every second. That's why it is false. So the word Sat also refers to the state of existence, reality that is everywhere around us. Number two, Sat also indicates Sadhu Bhave. It indicates people also who are pure. We call them sadhus, meaning there is purity, there is divinity in them. Okay, there is no trace of what we call impurities like greed, anger, jealousy. They only have pure thoughts in their mind. So Sat also is to indicate Sadhu Bhave. And he says Sat also indicates Sat Shabda, the word, when we speak good words, when we speak what we call pure words, right? All the words which we speak which are pure also indicate Sat. That means the presence of the Lord is there eternally. The presence of Lord is there in the good people, the sadhus, and the presence of Lord is there whenever we speak the truth, whenever we speak kind words and what we call nice words. So Sat indicates all these three. Eternal existence, you see a virtuous character, or noble actions we perform, all this refer to Sat. So now in 27 also, verse 27, he carries on giving more meanings for the word Sat. What is the word Sat used for? So here he says, Sat indicates Sthitihi. Whenever any human being is steadfast, Sthitihi means steadfast, he doesn't give up. Give up what? Yajna, Dana, Tapas. So who is steadfast in performing all his three actions, doesn't give up, doesn't waver, doesn't falter from these three. Now these three are actually compulsory actions given in our scriptures. Later on in chapter 18, Krishna will speak more about this Yajna, Dana, Tapa. So anyone who is firm on the path of Yajna, Dana, Tapa, who diligently follows this path, and he says such a person should be known as Sat also. So Sat can be applied in many, many cases, right? Anyone who follows the path of Yajna, Dana, Tapa diligently, also the word Sat is used. So now Krishna has explained to us the four practices to be practiced the Sattvic way, and even if we don't have any knowledge of the scriptures, it is okay. We have faith, we follow this Yajna, Dana, Tapa, and we before we start these actions, we utter Om Tat Sat. After we complete them, also we utter Om Tat Sat. So there's two reasons. Why we utter before and why we utter after. We invoke the name of the God before we start any actions, so to invoke His grace. Number two, after we've completed the action, we may have made some mistakes in our action, so again we utter Om Tat Sat to what we call invoke His forgiveness if we have made any mistakes. We chanted the verses wrongly, we may have offered the wrong items to the altar, so whatever it is, chant Om Tat Sat before and after. So now in this closing verse 28, here the Lord talks about a group of people. They may also be doing Yakya Dana Tapa also. But here he's talking about a group of people who don't have faith. So they just follow Yakya Dana Tapa, they do prayers, rituals, they give charity, they keep austerities, but they have no faith at all in their actions, neither do they have faith in God. So what happens to such people? So the Lord says in the concluding verse of chapter 17, verse 28, whatever is Uttam, the word Uttam here means whatever is offered as oblation into the fire. That means whatever prayers, whatever rituals you do, number one. Datam, whatever you give as charity. Number three, Tapaha, whatever austerities that you undergo. Okay? And let's say you do all these three, but Ashraddhaya. So the word here is very important. Shraddha means faith. Ashraddhaya means without faith. If you perform all these actions without faith, then the Lord says, Uchyate, if you utter, okay, this word Om Tat Sat, if you utter this word Om Tat Sat, He says, Na Pretya, it will not give you any benefit at all. So the word Om Tat Sat can only be used if you have faith and you do all these rituals, prayers, dhanam, charity, everything. You have faith, you do this, and then only you invoke the grace of the Lord, you are forgiven, and He will also bless you for your actions. But if you have no faith and you do all this, then there is pointless to go and chant Om Tat Sat. It will have no effect.
Asat.
Sorry?
It becomes asat.
Asat. So asat means, what does asat mean here? Asat means it becomes impure. Your action becomes impure. You cannot make it pure again. Whereas in the case of that person who has faith, if he performs them and makes any mistake, by chanting Om Tat Sat, he or she will be forgiven also. So therefore, all action should be performed with faith. That is the ultimate conclusion of the Lord. Whatever you perform it with faith, and then chant Om Tat Sat. And thus ends the commentary on chapter 17. So, do you all have any questions? Shall we proceed with chapter 18? Yes.
Most of the time we hear that we do karma yoga, jnana yoga to attain liberation.
Karma yoga first to attain purity. Then with that you get knowledge, then you attain liberation. Yeah, okay.
But are we already in a state of moksha? Or is it a goal that we...
Are you already in the state of?
Moksha. Are we actually liberated? It's just that through jnana yoga, we have the self-realization that we are.
Correct.
Or is it attain something that is a goal?
No, I didn't get you. By
Are we
performing.
already in a state of moksha? It's just that without jnana yoga, we don't self-realize that we are actually.
So, okay, first of all, what is the definition of moksha? What is the definition of moksha? The definition of moksha, while living, it's not that you attain this after death. You do attain after death, but the state of moksha first must be attained while living. So, what do we mean by while living? While living means we do not identify with this body. We don't identify with our actions. We consider ourselves as a witness to all that is happening around. So that is what is called the state of Jivan Mukta. Jivan means while living, Mukta means you are free of all the happenings that are going on around you. Happiness, sorrow, nothing affects you at all. This state of Jivan Mukta was beautifully described in the 18 closing verses of chapter 2. Lord used the word as Titakarnya, the one who is established in wisdom. So the thing is, we need to attain the state of moksha first while living. Then when we are living and we attain the state of enlightenment, then upon the fall of this body, we don't come back for another birth. So that first state is called Jivan Mukta. The second state is called Videha Mukta, where then we don't come back for another birth. So we have to go through this, but the problem is to accept that final what we call understanding that I am not the body, I am the soul. That is the most difficult. Book knowledge we are all have. We know I am not the body, I am the soul. But the minute somebody says something to us, what happens? We get agitated, we get affected. Or somebody praises us, we get very arrogant, very elated. So that means we still have not accepted ourselves as the soul, we still act as the body. So until your mind is calm, it doesn't get agitated, doesn't get elated, you have a control over your mind, that is where you're heading towards the first stage of moksha. Okay? Right. Any other question? Okay, no question, we will move on to chapter 18. Now, chapter 18 is the final chapter in the Gita, and it is the longest chapter in the Gita, 78 verses. And what is the title of chapter 18? Moksha, Sannyasa, Yoga. So there's moksha and there's sannyasa. So moksha, as sister just asked, is what we call liberation, total liberation. Okay? Sannyasa means to renounce, to give up. Okay? So that is what is going to be emphasized. Now the good thing for those of you who missed a lot of the past chapters, there's good news, because chapter 18 is a summary of all the past 17 chapters, right? Lord will highlight all the important points of 17 chapters, all condensed into chapter 18. Okay? Next thing to understand about this chapter is, what was the title of the first chapter? Do you remember the title of the first chapter? Time for revision. What's the title of first chapter? Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Vishada means despondency. So what is despondency? Depression, confusion of thinking, right? Depression, etc. You can call it by different names. So chapter 1 starts with total depression or downfall of Arjuna's mental state. From there, chapter 1, you start with the downfall and you end up in chapter 18. What is chapter 18 title? Moksha Sannyasa Yoga. So from the depths of confusion, Arjuna came up to the state of moksha, liberation. That is the journey of the Gita. But very important, Arjuna fell into the state of depression, confusion. But, what is the important key point that helped him on his journey? What was the very first thing that set him off on his journey of liberation? He surrendered, exactly. Where was that? In chapter 2, verse 7, a very famous verse. So the minute Arjuna surrendered, that is when Lord took him under his shelter, and through a series of question and answers over 17 chapters, now we've come to chapter 18, where the Lord is going to talk about moksha and sannyasa, two important things. Now, the chapter starts with the question itself by Arjuna. And what is Arjuna's question here? So Arjuna's question is,
Meaning of renunciation.
Ichhami. He says, Arjuna is telling Lord Krishna, I want to veditum, I want to know. What does he want to know? Now, after hearing so much from Krishna over 17 chapters, he's coming to the final part, saying, Ichhami veditum, I desire to know Tattvam, the truth. What is the real truth about sannyasa, renunciation? Sannyasa means to give up, to renounce. And at the same time, Arjuna says, I want to know the truth also about tyagasya, tyaga. Tyaga also means to give up. So sannyasa means to give up, tyaga also means to give up. Now the question is, first of all, let's understand, why has Arjuna come back to the same question again? If you recall, this is not the first time Arjuna has been interested in sannyasa. When was the first time that Arjuna was interested in sannyasa? Huh? Chapter 1, right? Why in chapter 1 he suddenly became interested in sannyasa?
Didn't want to fight.
He didn't want to fight. He didn't want to do his duty. Why he didn't want to do his duty? Why he didn't want to fight? Attachment to all his relatives and all which were on the opposite side. He couldn't bring himself up to kill them. So if you go back to chapter 1, verse number 32. Chapter 1, verse number 32. He indicates to Krishna already that instead of fighting, what does he want? What is in his mind now? He says, page 16, chapter 1, verse 32. O Krishna, I covet not victory. I am not interested now in this battle. Whether I win or if I win also, I don't care. I am not interested. Nor the kingdom. If I win, I will get back my kingdom. But I am also not interested in that. Nor the pleasures, because if I get my kingdom, I will enjoy all the pleasures of the kingdom. Then what use will kingdom or luxuries be to a life for us? Meaning what? Meaning I am prepared to give up everything, I am prepared to sacrifice everything and take to the life of sannyasa. I am not interested in all this. And then again in chapter 2, verse number 5, page 26. Chapter 2, verse 5, page 26. He further reinforces this idea of sannyasa to Krishna when he tells him, better it is to live on alms in this world. Better for me to go house to house and beg for food and clothing and all that, than to slay the noble teachers, for by doing so, the enjoyments of riches and the fulfillment of desires will be bloodstained. So instead of staining my hands with blood, by killing all these people, what is the use? I get back the kingdom, better I forget it, use my hands to go and back, which means take to a life of sannyasa. So, is Arjuna wrong? Because people always ask, no, what is wrong? Arjuna wants to take sannyasa, very good, very noble. So why is Krishna telling him, don't take sannyas, be here, stand in the battlefield, fight? But Arjuna wants to take sannyas, is there anything wrong? When does sannyas normally come into our mind? When do most human beings want to take up sannyas?
No more responsibilities.
What?
No more responsibilities.
Yeah, when you want to run away from your responsibility, right? Spouse is troubling me, I want to take sannyas. Boss is troubling me, I want to take sannyas. When problems come, we think of sannyas. So, we must understand the act of taking sannyas is something very noble, but you must have a love for it. You must be really totally engrossed in it. One should not take sannyas to run away from your troubles and responsibilities. That is what Krishna is telling Arjuna. Your mind is not ready for sannyas. You are merely running away from your responsibilities to take sannyas. So there already he was dissuaded. And the good thing about Arjuna is he realized that although he didn't want to fight this battle, although he told Krishna, I want to take sannyas, yet what happened? He did not leave the battlefield. He surrendered to Krishna and said, okay, you guide me, you tell me now. what is the right thing for me to do? Fight this battle or take sannyas? So now Arjuna's mind comes back again to this question of what is sannyas, which is giving up, what is tyaga, which is giving up. Now we will see, Krishna will explain about what was the prevailing thought of sannyas at that time, and the same thing, the problem is what we are thinking about sannyas was also the thought which happened thousands of years ago. But then Krishna, after giving the opinion of other scholars, what is sannyas, then Krishna will tell us what is the real meaning of sannyas. This is something we have to understand. So we will look at the verses slowly. Okay, so now Arjuna wants to know about this sannyas and tyaga, both which means giving up. And the interesting thing is in this verse, Arjuna addresses Krishna by 3 different names, very unique. 3 different names he uses to address Krishna. What are the 3 names? Mahabaho, which means Maha means great, Baho means arms or strength, the one who has mighty strength, Mahabaho. Second, Rishikesha, Lord of the senses. So, and the third one is Kesini Sudana, the slayer of the demon Kesi. So 3 names he addresses Krishna. Now as you all know, throughout the Gita, many times Krishna addresses Arjuna also by different names, and Arjuna also addresses Krishna by different names. But the names are important according to the context of the verse. There is a meaning. It's not simply they are just using the names. There is a context behind it. So let us understand first why these 3 names. So first of all, Rishikesha, master of the senses. Okay? There was another name for Lord Krishna. So Rishika means our indriyas or our senses. Okay? And Isha means the Lord. So Rishikesha means Lord of senses. Now, we said in our scriptures that each of our sense has got a presiding deity. So eyes have got a presiding deity, ears have got a deity, every sense has got a deity. So who is the Lord of all these deities? It is Krishna himself or Brahman, you can say. Okay? So therefore Lord is the master of all the senses. So what we need to understand is, first of all, in order to progress on the spiritual path, we have to bring our senses under mastery, under control. How do you control your senses? There are 3 ways. How do you master your senses or control your senses? There are 3 ways. Number 1, you can suppress your senses. Right? Supposing your eye sees something very nice, you just suppress your senses. Will that work? Will that work? For a short time it may work. But will it work always? Because the thought is already in your mind, right? So it will keep on bugging you again and again and again. So one is suppressing, which is not workable. Second is, whatever comes to you, whatever your senses like, you just go ahead and do it. Is that advisable? Your eyes see something nice, you want it, you go and buy it straight away. Is that feasible? Also not advisable. So what is the third way? The only best and practical and intelligent way is to divert the attention of the senses. Divert to higher thoughts, divert to noble thoughts. That's why we are advised to go to temples, go to satsang, go to spiritual lectures, sing bhajans. Everything is to divert our mind to something noble, something higher. Okay? Now, if we don't discipline our senses, what is the danger? If you don't discipline the senses, what is the danger? Supposing you live a life of undisciplined senses, do whatever your senses like. What is the danger? You remember the allegory of the chariot and the 5 horses? 5 horses representing the 5 senses. If the horses are allowed to run in any direction, what happens? The chariot will end up to a destruction. So that means when the senses are undisciplined, the next thing they do is they pull your mind also away. So when you're not able to discipline your senses, your mind gets affected also. Your mind will start following what the senses want. So that's why first thing we ask the Lord first as Rishikesha to help us to be a master of the senses. Then the next thing is when you are a master of the senses, then the next thing is Mahabahu. Mahabahu means we must equip ourselves. When a warrior comes to the battlefield, he equips himself with all the right weapons to fight the battle. So what have we got to equip ourselves? Once we have disciplined the senses, now we want to go on the right path. What must we equip ourselves? Mahabahu is strength of the arms, but then what else can we equip ourselves? Will physical strength help us on the spiritual path? So what will help us? Knowledge. So the next thing is we need to make our intellect strong with the right knowledge. Study the scriptures. So that is Mahabahu. So if you have mastery of your senses and you are equipped with the right tools, knowledge of the scriptures to help you, what is the third thing that he addressed Krishna as? Kesi Sudana. Krishna who killed this demon Kesi. Who is our biggest demon to kill? Who will you kill in the end? Your biggest demon? Huh? The ego, exactly. So you see all these 3 names so beautiful. Is addressing Krishna. Help me master the senses, right? Equip with the right knowledge, and therefore I can kill the ego, just like he killed the demon Kesi. So all these are very allegorical, what Arjuna is asking, right? In fact, you can say all these 3 are the part of Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga also. So by addressing Krishna as his 3 names. So he's asked Krishna, can you please, what we call, explain to me what is the difference between sannyasa, which means giving up, tyaga also means giving up. Is there a difference? So now Krishna will start answering from verse number 2. So first of all, Krishna wants to give the opinion of the scholars at that time. Because where did Arjuna hear all about this sannyasa and tyaga? He must have heard it from other swamis and saints and sages. So first of all, Krishna in verses 2 and 3, 2 and 3 will tell us what is the opinion of scholars at that time. Now, why is that? Then only Krishna gives his opinion in verse number 4 and 5. Why does Krishna first tell us what the scholars of that time were thinking about sannyasa and then only give us his opinion? This is something we must question. Why does he tell us that?
This is the order of events that Brahman gave us, isn't it?
No.
Not because of that.
You see, there is no, the scriptures never force us to accept everything blindly. So Krishna can come out and say, this is sannyas, this is tyaga, you forget about what everybody said, you just follow what I said. No. He wants to tell us first what is the prevailing view. This is what you have heard, but now I'll tell you my view. Now what you should do, you compare the 2 views and then you decide which one you feel is right. So there is a choice there. So if I just give you my view and tell you this is my way or the highway, then you say what about all the other people who are saying like this? So better first we tell you what other people are saying. And these are not ordinary people, because Krishna says here, Kavayo, he uses the word Kavayo. Kavayo means the learned ones, the people who are intellectuals, who have read the scriptures, who have analyzed the scriptures. What do they say? They say, these enlightened people, they say that sannyasam, renunciation, is nyasam, giving up. Give up what? Karmanam, all actions. to give up all actions, kamyanam, which there is a desire for results. So any selfish desire you have for any action, give up that action, that is called sannyasa. This is whose opinion? Opinion of the learned scholars of their time. Okay? So I have sent you all these notes in the chat group today. The 5 types of karma. First we must understand this. The 5 types of karma. Okay. What are the 5 types of karmas? This is prescribed in the scriptures. Okay. So the first one is called nitya karma. Nitya karma means our daily duties. And our daily duties will vary according to time and place. Right? At home you have your daily duties to do, you go to your workplace, you have different duties to do. And also it will vary according to your stage in life. Right? If you're a bachelor, you have different duties. If you're a married person, you have different duties. So all these are nitya karmas which are prescribed in the scriptures and they cannot be given up. You must perform all these nitya karmas. Okay? Second is naimitika karmas, which are actions performed at certain occasions. Example, naming ceremony of a child is born, you have certain duties to do. Wedding time, you have certain different duties to do. Different prayers, different rituals at different times. So naimitika is occasional duties. Nitya is everyday duties. Third type of karmas is called prayashchit karmas, which means that if you have made a mistake, something you've done, there's a way to repent. So maybe they'll tell you go every Saturday to the temple and feed the cows or something like that. These are called prayashchit karmas, repentance, to cancel out something wrong that you did before. Huh? Atonement, yes, correct. Another word for it is atonement. Okay. Prayashchit karmas. Fourth is nishida karmas, which means which you should totally not do. You should avoid all this. Okay, like gambling, alcohol, etc. etc. And the last one is called kamya karmas, which also you should either avoid or minimize. That is selfish based actions, actions done for selfish purposes. So this is what Krishna is talking about here. That the learned people say sannyasam. So nitya karma, should you give up? Should you give up your daily duties? No. Naimitya karma, should you give up?
No.
No. What was the other one?
Prayashchit.
Prayashchit you do whenever required. Nishida karma, should you give up? Yes.
Yes.
Kamya karmas also, according to the learned people, you should also either give up or minimize them. So what are kamya karmas? Those actions performed with selfish attitudes. If you give up all these type of actions, that is called sannyasa. So that is one of the views of the learned people. Okay? So now the thing is, sannyasa is not putting up orange robes and going to forest and sitting down, and that is called sannyasa. That is known as formal sannyasa. But as long as you cannot give up selfish activities, you have not reached the stage of sannyasa. So now, what do other people say? So the Lord says there, Vichakshana, there is another group of learned people, wise people also. Prabhu, they say that Tyaga, renunciation is, you're very careful, you have to understand this. What is sannyasa? Sannyasa is giving up actions which are motivated by selfish desires, correct? Now let's see what they say about Tyaga. Tyaga is giving up sarva karma phala tyaga, giving up the fruits of your results. Now do you see the difference? What is sannyasa? Sannyasa is giving up actions which are motivated by selfish desires. Tyaga is giving up the fruits of your action. That means, should you give up the action? Do you give up the action? You give up the fruit of your action. That means, as a householder, you will have to perform actions for certain selfish reasons also. But what he's saying, you can perform those actions, but give up the fruit of your actions. So, what do you mean by giving up the fruit of your actions? Giving up actions is very easy. Any selfish action, I give up. I'm a sannyasi. But what do you mean by giving up the fruits of your action? That means you perform the action, there is a result. Now we say renounce the result. So what do you mean by that?
Accept the results.
Huh?
Accept whatever the result is.
Accept what?
Whatever the result is.
Whatever the result is, that means if the result is in your favor, you should not get carried away, you should not get elated, you should not get arrogant. And if the result is not in your favor, you should not get rejected, you should not get angry, you should not get frustrated. So you maintain a equilibrious balance, what they call samaha. What is it? Equipoise, right? So maintain that balance. Whatever the result happens, I am not affected. So that is what is called sarva karma talatya. That is tyaga. But now keep in mind that this is what is the view of the learned people at that time. This is not Krishna's view. This is what is the learned people's view. So what is Krishna's view? You come back next week and look at the following verses. Okay? So now we are in the prayer. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kansa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Thank you.